This week I sat down with a tennis coach for the ATP and WTA for a conversation about tennis strategy, tennis tactics, and life lessons learned on the court. If you're a tennis fan, this is good stuff that you don't want to miss. What's up, team? Coach Joshua here from TennisTactics.com. This week I had the chance to interview someone who has played and coached at every level of the game. If you don't know the name Claudio Pistolesi, I'm about to introduce you to the coach behind some big names in tennis. Claudio is a former professional player ranked as high as 71 in the world. When he was 29, he began coaching other players on the tour, including Monica Seles. Since then, he's coached a number of players on the tour and has helped players like Robin Soderling and Daniela Henchikova reach their career high rankings. In this interview, we talk about how Claudio defines tennis strategy and tennis tactics. He shares a bunch of stories from both his playing and coaching career, and he leaves a profound message for tennis players about learning to solve problems on the court and in life. Let's jump in. But first, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so I can bring you more tennis tactics. So Claudio, give us a little insight, give us a little background on yourself as a coach. Where are you coming from?
Yes, I started coaching in 1996. I was still playing, and I felt the vocation of coaching. So for 1 or 2 years, I was still playing. I already started coaching. So I never left the professional tour. I started with two very lucky and privileged chances, because you need luck. And one is to meet Takao Suzuki. I am Italian, and I was able to coach in Japan, the most far possible culture from an Italian. And I moved to Japan to learn a different culture. Takao Suzuki, I had the intuition that he could be a really good player, and I was coaching for the next 14 years. And I think we opened the door many in Asian tennis in many ways, and I'm so proud of that with Takao, which I call now my Japanese little brother. And also I was called from Monica Seles after the stabbing she had, and it was at the end of my career. We was good friends. We practiced together as a player. We had the same agent, and she remembered me to have somebody to rebuild their team after the stabbing, come back after 2 years. And I was so lucky because, again, I was back on court with the number one, for me, the best ever player, because, she already won, I think, 9 majors at 19 years old. And then after what's happened, I was so proud to coach her after that. And I was in her team when she won the Australian Open '96 after the stabbing. This is one of the most highest achievement in all sports, not only in tennis. Then I was able to keep going. You are dependent on winning. When you're a private coach, or you win or you win. Otherwise you don't survive on the tour. And somehow I survived 25 years to coaching on the tour, coaching WTA players or ATP players. A number of players like Michael Berrer, for example, from Germany, Davis Cup player from Germany, got best ranking with me. David Sanguinetti, Italian. I'm Italian, so I'm proud to coach David. They made achievement a lot. And I wrote a book about all this, and soon coming out in English is Once Upon a Time My Tennis, and there's all the stories about my coaching. And in the men's, my allied with Robin Soderling was number 5 in the world when he called me, and he was number 4 in the world with me. And this is another lucky and privilege and fantastic story. And I'm skipping a lot of stories, otherwise it'd be too long.
Well, that's why we'll read your book later when it comes out.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I've absolutely loved kind of chatting with you and just getting your background and hearing some of the stories that you've been telling me.
Thank you.
And I'm a big tactics guy, big strategy guy. And I want to give you just a minute to tell us a little bit about your views on strategy and tactics in tennis. This is something that I think my channel is going to find really interesting because, you talk to a lot of different coaches, and I think for a lot of people, it's rare to talk to a coach like yourself that has so much experience so deep in the tour, right? And now you run a tennis academy and you're working with players of all levels, right? So yeah, super curious. Let's jump in. Tell us about how you think about strategy and tactics when it comes to the game of tennis.
Yes, it's very interesting for me, this question, because I think it's a moral duty, every coach to be an expert of terminology. And strategy and tactics are 2 words that are the most utilized in the tennis world and in the sport in general. I think it's always worth to try to simplify. So my interpretation, this is only my interpretation of strategy and tactics, meaning is strategy is something you prepare before the competition with your player. So based on scouting, based on information you have on your opponent, based on what you're supposed to know what's going to happen. You can try to prevent what's going to happen, but you'll never be 100% sure, because every day, every match you start from 0-0, and you don't know. It's like a trip. You know from where you start, but you don't know where you're going. So it can go in many ways. So the strategy is this. Tactics is more interesting for me. It's more linked to the emotions. You cannot separate the tactics from the emotional part, in my opinion, from the mental part. Managing emotions, and to be clean in your mind, to be really sharp, to understand the moment and change few things if needed, or adjust a few things if needed during the match. So strategies before the match, tactics during the match. Both very interesting, and that's what I finalized my idea of strategy and tactics.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And like, so, you don't have to list all of them, but I'm curious, in the years of coaching, the years of playing, what kind of strategies are you? Let's go strategies first. We'll talk tactics in a second. But strategies, like, what kind of strategies do you lean towards? Like, what do you really believe in? What do you enjoy most, strategy wise?
Well, of course, the only answer possible is depends, because it depends who you are coaching. So, what are the tools that are in possess of your player, the player that you are coaching? What is the opponent pattern and information you have about the opponent? Of course, you try to make strategy simple, no more than two ideas. And also, there is always this balance in strategy where you don't have to jump in the trap of to be too dependent on the opponent. I think 80% you still stick with your identity. You want to bring your game regardless of the opponent, especially obviously when you serve. The serve is 100% on you. That's my speech with my players. And 20-25% you have to know information about the opponent. If they don't like, if you serve a ball to their backhand, you do a little bit more of that. If they are very tall, long legs, long arm, you serve more to the body, so they're more tough to turn. They're slower to turn. If they have the tendency to be very much behind the baseline, you can take the chance and play some drop shot. But it's all theory, So I think there is no one. My favorite strategy, my favorite is the one who fit the best for this situation, and
Yeah.
so I can tell you stories about that. But
Well, I'm a big believer in a few things you said there, right? One, like, strategy is all about how you use the tools that you have, right? So, like, as a player, you're going to have the different tools in your tool belt. Maybe you have a strong forehand, maybe you don't have a strong backhand. Maybe you have an awesome flat backhand that you can use to put things away. Like, how are you going to use that,
yeah,
And I also really like how you touched on, like, 80% of the time, you don't need to change things up. Like, 80% of the time, like, be yourself as a player, know your identity, and know what works for you and know what doesn't, and try to use that more than anything, right?
yeah. Also, there is a third way, because normally a strategy, if it works, of course you keep going. If you don't, using the tactics, you try to change. But the third way could also be that you bring into the plate, into the match, your identity, and it doesn't work. You don't necessarily need to change anything, but just doing what you're supposed to do, but better, putting more first serve in, stay lower on your legs, don't less distracted. So you don't change anything on what you plan in the strategy, but you have to deliver in a higher level the same strategy. So this is the third way, So not necessarily
Yeah.
you have to change with the tactics, but you see if you are delivering at the level of intensity that you're supposed to do to win this match.
That's a good point, because sometimes you got the right strategy and you're just missing it. It's not always the right call to do something different, right? It's just
Yeah,
lock in and try to do it a little
better.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like, I mean, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, the problem solving nature of strategic thinking in tennis. Like, sometimes you get into a match and you're like, what do I need to do? Like, how do I adjust? And these are the tactics as you define them, right? Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about this. Like, give us a few examples of tactics. We don't have to go too deep, but just a few quick examples of what a tactical adjustment might look like in a match.
Yeah, I will mention two Grand Slam finals, one in the men's, one in the women, as an example. Actually, three matches, because one final of US Open 1987, Lendl against Wilander. They both were sticking with their identity. Lendl won. Wilander was playing baseline, was playing his game, was trying to stay solid. Lost. And next year, what's happened? Wilander Lendl again. So Wilander had the only chance in his life winning this match to be number one in the world. And he decided to go for the opposite of what he played the previous year. This is the best example of incredible tactics lesson in the history of tennis. US Open 1987 final. Mats Wilander started to play the opposite of what is his nature. All year, I know that because 1988, I was beating Wilander when he became number one. I beat Wilander in Monte Carlo. I was seeing that he was playing different. He was trying to come more to the net, play more slice back, and things that never did before. Yeah. In this final, he put all the pieces together, and guess what? He won. He beat Lendl, surprising him with the tactics, actually with the strategy, because it was obvious that his strategy was to go to the net as much as he can, go serve and volley, play a lot of slice, low and short both. So he boycotted completely the game of Lendl. He didn't expect that. Lendl thought that maybe it was something similar to the previous year. He was totally out of rhythm, and Wilander won. He gave all of us the best lesson tactics in the history of tennis. In the second example I can give you is the final of 1996 Australian Open, Monica Seles against Hanke Huber. And I was 29 years old, and it was it was a lot of pressure. Monica trusted me so much, and I would never thank her enough for giving me this opportunity to be with her. And she just won the semifinal. She beat Chanda Rubin, saving one match point, by the way. Chanda played unbelievable. And Huber, Anke has to play the next semifinal. So say, Claudio, go to scout the final, and so you can tell me how to play tomorrow. So it's a big responsibility, So you have to prepare the strategy. And then I saw, and I was not expert. I was still playing almost, and I saw. Okay, I tell myself what I would do if I have to play against Huber. In theory, sure. I would play obviously. Anke had great backhand, forehand with very extreme grip. If she played fast to the forehand, she probably had some trouble. So I went for it. I said, Monica, if I have to tell you what I think, you have to return to her forehand, serve to her forehand, play fast to her forehand. Make her feel miserable with her forehand, maybe move her to the back and make her play to the forehand on the run. So Monica won 6-2, 6-3, and the match lasts less than 1 hour. Dominate the match, and no need of change anything. It was perfectly working well. So there was 2 examples of strategy.
I love that.
That I can bring into the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's sweet, because I love kind of the difference there, right? Where you're doing something that is maybe it's outside your nature, like Lendl, right? Or maybe like Monica, you're well, if I just keep crushing forehands cross court, that's not a super risky shot, but just put some pace on it and do it over, commit to the strategy. I love when I see things work out like that.
Yeah, Wilander was a genius, and he had a lot of guts to revolution and to go completely out of his comfort zone, but it pays off. Monica didn't need, and they both won.
So tell me, these are really your examples. In working with players, both on the pro tour, both amateur players, what do you find kind of the best way to teach these tactics as a coach and help people learn both tactics and strategy as a player?
Well, I think communication is the most important thing. You know how to communicate. You need to be short in communication and clear and very practical. If you get lost in technique, you know that there is no time to think. In tennis, it's much better to feel. Not better, but it's the only way is to feel instead of thinking. You do the thinking before serving and before returning a little bit. But then once the ball is in play, the ball calls you, and you just feel. Just have to have flash, and try to make the self-talking very simple. So I work a lot. I try to make them realize how is the self-talking going. Because this determine it's called ability. Mental ability, mental ability is self-talking, which reflect another mental ability, which is the key, which is the body language. So Nadal is the best ever in that, and you can see, from the body language what he's telling to itself. So you want to have the player, regardless the level, that he has a positive thoughts, that he's trying to help himself, not to help the opponent. Yeah. There is a kind of a little bit of masochism in tennis players that they keep punish themselves during the match, being the best friend of their opponent. If in the junior, if you make a round and say, my backhand sucks, my why I'm here, so windy, I can't wait today, I want to go to the shower. That's the best help for the opponent, So you have to be a little bit of an actor. I understand it's frustration game. You burn inside, but you just don't show it. If you want to swear, you don't swear loud. You get warning. You swear without anybody can hear, and try to make body language strong. The Spanish are so good. I can tell you another story about that. I played the 18 years old Spanish guy, was top 100 in Oporto in Portugal, big challenger. I was seed number 1 or 2. First round, this guy qualified, young boy, never hurt, and I was up. And then I was up 5-2 second set, and I was almost won the match. And see this boy with the body language still like fist, vamos, 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 with a high head. So proud. Say, well, look at this kid. Until I finish him, he doesn't give up, and something went wrong. Long story short, I lost in 3 sets. What him? Who was the name? Alex Correggia. So I was the first. I think I was the first top 100 that he beat. So then he was top 2 in the world and was finalist of slams, a fantastic champion. This shows the Spanish. They have this, I think, heritage of the corrida, from Torero. This pride, the way of walking with the chest out, and that this you send message without talking, So they are very good on that. That's why I think they dominate so much, especially clay game.
I remember in Rafa Nadal's autobiography, he talks about that a little bit. He talks about how they have an expression, un buena cara, which means a good face. He's like, my uncle always taught me how important it is to have un buena cara on the court and to show a good face no matter what's happening in the score or what's happening inside. Put on a good face and make sure that your opponent knows that you believe in yourself.
Yeah, the Spanish school lead the world on that. And also they have the luck that come on in Spanish, you say vamos.
Yes.
And so many players in the world, non-Spanish speaking, including the Italians, in Italian say andiamo. That's nothing to do with vamos. They say vamos because the word itself makes you powerful. Matteo Berrettini all the time say vamos. Flavio Pennetta say only vamos. Because it sounds better, it's more relieving, it's more powerful, So vamos is really strong for you and strong against your opponent. So they have the luck to have this word in their language. They work so well for tennis. Maybe I'm a bit freaky for the words, but I believe there is a truth in that.
Yeah. Well, I did want to ask two other questions, and I want to hear a couple of your stories. So one, I personally feel this way. Sometimes it's very difficult to find a good tennis coach, and sometimes it's difficult to be a good tennis coach. And I feel like especially in the States, there's a lot of players who aren't able to come to tennis academies or feel like they can kind of get in touch with really high level coaches. But I wanted to ask you, like, thoughts on what makes a really good tennis coach, right? Like if you could almost coach someone to be a coach after you've had this great career, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is the empathy. Empathy is very important word that is come from Old Greek in pathos, which means one is an emotion of the other. So you can have somebody theoretically very good coach, somebody theoretically very good player, and there is no empathy. I remember Brad Gilbert for me is one of the best, if not the best in the world. They tried to work with Jamie Murray. It didn't work because no empathy. I was there and I felt that. And obviously Brad Gilbert is a giant, is unbelievable coach still nowadays. And then Andy Murray is one of the top, so say he's a bad player. So this is the most important, to have the empathy. And also very important, the private coach has this difficult relation with money, because you are the one who you are the coach, so you're the one who guiding the player. You have to be tough sometimes, is needed with the words, and he's the one who pays you. So sometimes you really need to be strong and to be very self-confident. The self-confidence, which is another mental ability, is more important for coaches than for players. So if you want to be a good coach, you need to be very self-confident. So if you have to go straight to your point, only do what you believe, with the risk that the player is firing you, because you know that it'd be easier to tell them what they like to hear. But if you don't believe it's true, you don't. And then the next thing you know is coming the agent, is coming the parents, and then you have no work anymore. But then the message to be, okay, I think you lost me, I didn't lose you.
Yeah.
So if you fire me, bad luck for you, if you are strong enough to be a good coach. Otherwise, you turn yourself, with all the respect for the job, to a concierge. Concierge is somebody that is helping to book the court, to string the racket, we lost, doesn't matter, let's go to have an ice cream. It's easy to be a concierge. It's not easy to be a real coach. If you don't do that, if you are not ready to lose the work, you cannot call yourself a coach. I think you are a concierge. So this is the toughest part. And talking about United States, very often there is the business part, and it doesn't fit well with the job of coaches, the business, because you do it because you love it, and you need to put the passion. Sometimes you put this in front of your family. A lot of traveling, huge traveling. There is a need of traveling if you want to do the job. So availability to travel, and knowing that you normally are the weakest ring of the chain. Once you lose 3 or 4 matches, the typical 3 or 4 time first round, the typical okay, I change the coach. So
isn't that the worst?
So there are a lot of aspects in this work.
I really resonate with what you were saying there about empathy and self-confidence as a coach. I think that one thing I found myself is as a player, I started playing kind of late. I didn't start playing until I was a freshman in high school. And I feel like that gave me a window into coaching a lot of other players who started late. And I put in a ton of work, and I figured things out. I ended up playing college tennis, and that all turned out really well. But I think that gave me a lot of empathy to kind of know what it's like to come in and try to learn this new game when like I was kind of old enough to remember the struggle, right? And then similarly, the self-confidence part resonates with me a lot. I coached for a long time, and it was a little bit of a leap for me to start this channel, Tennis Tactics, and start publishing a lot of my ideas that I'm like, do my strategies hold up on the world level? Like, are people going to be interested in this, right? And I think those two things go such a long way in making a good coach, because you want to find someone who has opinions, who will say, hey, this is what we should do. Let's work on this. Let's go this direction and help you get there. It's not as always as helpful to find someone who's just kind of like an echo chamber and will tell you what you want to hear, right? And I see a lot of that in private coaching, where especially on the recreational level, a lot of times coaches make things easier for their players, and like, oh, you're doing really good, and I'm kind of like, I'm going to show you where you're weak. I'm going to show you where you're weak. I'm going to show you where you need to improve. We're going to make a plan to do it, and let's win some matches here, But
you have to be honest. You have to see good and bad, whatever you see, and give a value to your work. So you ask to be paid, and don't be happy with nowadays many young coaches, they're happy just to go to India Wells. They become very popular on Facebook, on Instagram. Go to the airport with the badge and on the sunglasses. So it's really the need of understand the soul of this work. The soul is you're there to make a difference. You're there to build something with the player, and it can only happen when you have great empathy and very good human relation with the player, and you grow together. Don't think you're perfect. You want to understand. You want to involve the player in what decision to make, and you don't want to be an army style. You just do some. Also is like this. Some also there is another conversation about when the parent become the coach. Former players, there are many nowadays. I know Brian Shelton, for example. I played against him, and his son is top player. Benjamin, I know I played the Christian Ruud son is another top player, Casper Ruud, and I can go on. Cobolli, I played with the father, and now Cobolli is Italian players, just broke top 50. He's gonna be top 20 soon, I think. And Zverev, I met the father of Zverev. That time was the Soviet Union, was a great player and became a coach, of course, of the son of Sasha. And if I start thinking, there are more and more and more, and is another chapter of coaching if you're also there is a parent coach.
Yes, that is. I've always thought, I don't have kids myself yet, but I've always thought it's a tough relationship to manage sometimes, coaching your own kids. But well, tell me, the other question I want to ask, which one more about coaching, and then I want to hear some strategy, tactic stories. As a coach, we talked about how important it is to have a lot of self-confidence in what you're doing. But what would you say is one of the greatest weaknesses in a coach or threats to a coach that would hinder your ability to help players?
This is an interesting question. What is the threat for coach? Well, is probably the burnout. The burnout is the biggest threat, because if you don't give yourself the space for your life, if you're too involved, I did that for 20 years, traveling 35, 40 weeks per year. And then your private life suffer, and you don't give enough space that at least to have the basic of a private life. Your family, because you're so too much involved, the ranking, the money, you are competitive, so you want to see your players, especially if the things goes well.
Yeah.
So that's why nowadays you see something that makes a lot of sense, and I am a little bit involved in that too, because there is the main coach, the head coach. That, for example, I helped the team of Emil Rusuori from Finland sometime, and Federico Ricci, my friend, he did a fantastic job. I'm still doing with Emil Rusuori, and he's Italian. Federico asked me, sometime I can back him up with 1 or 2 weeks so he can be with the family, he can recharge the batteries, and he tried to stay away from the burnout.
Yeah.
And so many players, they like Sinner as Darren Cahill and Simone Magnossi. Sometimes one goes, sometimes another one goes, and then in the major everybody goes. Is a management of the year if you want to last long. Normally you like to last long. You don't want to coach one player 1 year. I had stories of Sanguinetti 12 years, Suzuki 14 years. Even Simone Bolelli, when he was a good single player with me, almost 4 years, which is not bad.
Yeah.
If you keep switching, it's not that successful. I think, for 6 months and go, less than a year and go. So that's the things to take in consideration.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I think just like just like as a player, you're kind of managing your schedule. Same thing with coaches. Like you got to manage your schedule. You got to make sure you're prioritizing yourself, and so that you're able to help all these players, right? If the coach isn't in a good spot and able to be energetic and come to the court every day, you're not going to be able to make as much of a difference for your players, right? So that's huge.
Yeah. Plus, I want to add one more thing. In my time, when I coached from 96 to 2015, the concept of a team was not that strong. Now at the end of the tournament, somebody win the tournament, they thank the coach. Thank you to my coach. Now they thank you to my team.
Yeah.
So there is, especially the one who can afford, but even the top 100, they have not only the coach. The coach is responsible, like a director of orchestra. You have the, how do you call the stick,
Yeah.
and then there is a guy who play the violin in the right moment, which is maybe the physical trainer, and then there's a mental trainer, and then there's agents. But you have the control of the music, which is the player. So you need to manage the team now, but this helps because again, stay away from a burnout, and you share a little bit the responsibility. Not always is affordable to do that, but you try. Nowadays with technology, you can do online, so there is no need to buy a flight ticket for 5 person every time you travel.
Yeah.
But you put together. Now you are more an organizer. You are more a manager. In football in America called soccer, the coach of the team is called manager. In Premier League, it's called manager. The guy in Chelsea or Manchester United or Arsenal, they call the manager. I love that because you have to manage all the time. And now we are talking about coaching, but actually we are manager of tennis. So we manage. That's exactly what we do all day long. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have to manage. for common understanding, we call the coach. Coach is a word come from the 19th century in England. The coach was the guy who drive the carriage with the horses. And the horses don't know where to go. You don't have to drive the horses.
Yeah.
Then we have better word with manager than coach, but then stuff to change habits all over the tennis world.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, cool. So I wanna shift gears a little bit. I want to give you the chance to tell us about a few experiences. Tell us about a few matches. And I want to go through. Tell us about the match, the situation, what was going on, and I want to talk about the strategies that you had before that match and the tactical adjustments you made during the match, right? And I mean, you've had a lot of success around the tennis world. You've been successful as a player. You've been successful as a coach. So would be really curious to hear a couple stories from your time playing, from your time coaching, and just give us an insight into how you were thinking about the strategies and then how you're thinking about the tactics in these matches. I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I remember once that was not that high level important match, but it's a lot of meaning for what we are talking about. There was a South African player, top 10 in the world, maybe top 5, Grant Stafford in the 90s. Incredible, best return I can remember. Incredible return, more double play, but very good single player too. And I played in Rome, my city. There was a big challenger before the Italian Open. First round, I played Stafford. And I thought that on clay, he had no chance. But I was wrong. I undervaluate. I'd say, okay, I play my game on clay, he has no chance because I'm a clay player. He's more of a hardcore grass. So I thought the surface was doing the job for me. Wrong. He surprised me every time I play second serve. He come in on the second serve. He was standing with 2 steps inside the baseline on my serve. It bothered me visually also so much. And I had no chance. I lost 2 sets. Next week, Italian Open, first round, Pistolesi, Stafford, and again. And so, okay, I got experience. I was beat up the first time. I tried to do something different. What I do, and I realized that serve return was the key, especially my serve. And I start to go, okay, now I don't care what. Anyway, if I keep playing my game, I'm going to beat up again. So I have nothing to lose. I go big serve, but really big, full power, first and second serve to his body, all match. So he had no chance to do what he likes to do and what he was making the difference. I made maybe 3-4 double fault, doesn't matter,
Okay.
Which is not much if you go full for second serve.
Yeah, that's maybe really good.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more spin. You give 5% more kick on the body, and I won in 2 sets.
Okay.
So that's what typically changes strategy from the same player. Luckily, it was coincidence. In 1 week time, I played twice the same player.
Yeah.
And that's what shows that the good strategy can work. About tactics, I can give you another example of a match of another player I coached, Robin Soderling, on grass. He was not a grass player, but he was able to adapt his game, especially with the huge serve he had and great timing, unbelievable timing on the ball. Robin, he played Leighton Hewitt on grass, first round.
Yeah.
You can imagine Leighton Hewitt was a bit at the end of career, but still is a winner, Wimbledon #1 in the world. And on grass, everything changes. The grass, obviously, super specialist of grass. And Robbie lost the first 2 sets playing his game. And then he had a flash. He had the idea, I say, okay, now we was trying to make in return, but Robbie was very stubborn, no? But I said, sometime on grass, you can block the return. You don't need to go big every return because you had big swing. So he started to block the return like a slice, put it back like Andy Murray style.
Yeah.
And if somehow I think this click changed something, what put off guard the Hewitt or something, what's happened? Robbie won in 5 sets, So this is a tactic that can only be a flash, like an idea, like the ring bell. Oh, wow. I realized, let's do this, It's not that complicated, but it only happen if you are really open to receive ideas, if you are into it, if you are interested in what you're doing, if you're not distracted, you be isolated completely into it. It's the opposite of boring is not fun, is interesting. So from interesse, from Latin, esse inter, stay inside, so esse interesting. So he was so interested to find a solution, and he did, so you could try things and something doesn't work, but it's coming the key that you find one key that it works. The momentum change, the confidence level one goes down while the other one goes up. The other starts thinking, you start to believe that you can win the match. You are very happy that you find something that works. And then the rest of the game follow, start to serve better, and then that's the beauty. I think this is the most beautiful thing, the tactics, because you can change the match, There's no time limit, so you don't have to work against the clock. So changeover are very important, because you want to put I suggest my player to put a towel in your head, so you are isolated and try to have ideas, but you have to feel the ideas, not to think the ideas. They say they have two brains, the brain in the head and in the stomach. The material of the stomach is the same material of the brain. So you have to think with the gut feeling in tennis. The gut feeling gives you the right ideas. So that's, again, linked a lot with the emotional part and how you are in contact with your body, the tactics, because it's not only an exercise of remember things or to have studied something, or it's not a technical, it's emotional, that prepares you to find the solution, and then you find it, and then you feel it, and then you bring it to the court, and many times works, unless the other one is like another counter idea. That's the beauty, like playing chess. There is the move, the counter move, the counter move, and then it starts to be so interesting, and then it's a mental battle. And then that's why tennis goes so interesting, and so you can amuse so much some matches, because they keep trying to kill each other with ideas.
I love that. Yeah, and it is interesting because I feel like sometimes players are not, like, especially recreational players and even up to new college players, sometimes they're not very familiar with the ideas that they should be having, right? Where, like you talked about Soderling, right? He's making these adjustments on grass. He starts chipping the return, right? Starts chipping the return, getting it deep. We see Djokovic using a really similar tactic a lot. He'll chip that return and put it right in center in the deep in the court, neutralize the serve a little bit. And I think it's so valuable to have this kind of library of tactics in your mind, right? Of saying like, oh, like these are some options I might try if things are not going well. And that's one of the questions I get a ton here on the channel, actually. Like I've been asked a bunch, if I'm not playing well, like if things are not working, what's a good tactical adjustment that I might make to start winning more points, right? Thoughts from me on your end about that?
Yeah, I think it's not only that, I see now we talk only about top champions, but bring this in the lower level and the junior, as the young players, college players. I think this goes to open wider conversation, because the society changes. And for me, you have to be not only to know what to do, but to be prepared to have the guts, to have the power, the strength to do changes. And the patient, you have to be patient. Nowadays, with the phones, smartphones, there are the apps and shortcuts. I need to know about an elephant. Google, I know everything about elephant. Yeah. In my time, I have to go to get the book, go to the vocabulary, open elephant. I try to see some photos, and so you earn it. You have to more energy to know what you want to learn, and then it makes you stays on you, so you learn. I remember 20 telephone number by heart. Now I hardly remember mine. So it's a society change. And when you go to tennis didn't change. There is not an app to win tennis. You still have to be strong, you still have to be patient, you still have to be learning things, earning the learning. Sorry, the game word, because it's not fast. Nowadays many young, they want to have everything and they want to have right away, so they're not willing to pay a price of energy and patience and fail and do it again and then try to not be discouraged and give time to the things to learn. And then you know better when it's needed to change tactics. No, because it's not the theory, it's not an instruction. This is the problem, this is the solution. You have to work on yourself to be able to bring the solution. That's the toughest part. So, you know, by when you wake up in the morning, you make your own bed, you know, you're nice with the people, you are in time, you're not late, you engage yourself, and you make yourself a better person. Then this, maybe you can say, what has to do with tennis? There's a lot to do, because then you are more careful on the return. You're not superficial. You play with more care. You have to be careful, full of care, and to do the things that are you are break down the things, that you understand the things, and you pay the price of energy to learn, so they stays on you. And when you need it, guess what? They will come. They will help you. If you want to, it so depends how you train, how important is, how willing, availability you have to learn, how much time, energy you want to give. You stay longer to serve because it doesn't work. You stay 1 more hour with the basket. I used to do this a lot until you get the click that now it works. So that's a society problem that I'm not criticize the young. I love the young, but it's not their fault. That's the way the world is going. But if we talk about tennis, luckily, in the most important things, the technology doesn't help. Maybe it can help with statistics, can help with informations, but it's not going to help you to have the guts to learn the things, to learn how to play side spin, and doesn't know how to have courage to change something, to take decisions. These days, no app for that. You need to earn it and work really hard off court, even 24 hours. You go to your mom cook, you do the dishes after, because you're full of care. So the same things. So this reflects a lot. It's 24-hour job. That's what I learned.
I love that. It reminds me of the saying of like, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And if you want to be a very conscientious and strategic player, like start finding ways to be purposeful and full of care, like you're saying, in every aspect of your life. And that's going to filter into your tennis. I'm a big believer in that for sure. So one thing I did want to just give you a second to talk about too. I feel like there's a lot of players that are going to listen to this that, maybe they're playing in high school, maybe they're trying to win their state tournament, maybe they're playing in their adult league, they're trying to win their league matches, and probably don't have a great sense of different tactics that they can use, right? And how to be a more strategic player rather than someone just hitting the ball. What advice would you give a player who wants to become more strategic and more tactical on the court?
Well, I would say that, first of all, sit on the solution, not on the problem, because so there are problems. Tennis is the job of your opponent is make problems for you, like in life, and life give you a problem, but you want to sit in the solution. What is the solution? Don't waste time on crying or whining or underline the problem. So if you are quick enough to stay always in the solution, Nadal is the best example, you have more chances to find the solution. And one other thing, strictly more about the game, is tri-dimensional. Many players forget, especially in US. It's not long and short or right and left. It's also the play high, play high and low. In Europe, it's much more considered the way to play high, the theme of playing high, on play lobs, because this is the reputation and the language said, you are a pusher. It's like you have to be ashamed if you are a pusher. But if you don't break any rules, then you find a way to win the match, So if you play high, there's nothing to be ashamed. I can give you another example of this that I've seen, if you want, in my career in doubles, in the final ATP finals, London 2016. The Bryan brothers against Granollers and Marc Lopez, two Spanish clay court players. Somehow they got to the final, and everybody thought they were being beat up from the Bryan brothers. I think they didn't plan it. I saw the match; it was so interesting that they started to play lobs from the beginning. Maybe they thought they're going to go some lobs, but they saw that was working. They play all match lobs. They play like 40 lobs right on the line. and the Brian went nuts, and they lost. So Granollers Lopez, they beat the Brian in the final. This is something for me out of the universe, but they happen. I saw with my own eyes, because tactically they understand that they can play high. So they can play lobs. They have to do it well, of course. Lob is very important. Don't forget, there is also this third dimension. It's not only play right or left or short and long. And also, something cannot be wrong is to focus on the beginning of the game. Like, for sure, you start obviously or with the serve or with the return. And so this is when you want to start well. You can talk a lot about the rally, but first you have to go into the rally. So many points, huge percentage end before the two shots. Yep. So unless it's double fault or is winner serve or missing the return. And I would say always training the +1. Serve +1, return +1 should be one piece. Not only serve. I try to talk to my players: serve +1, return +1. So you go into the rally with taking a little bit of advantage, especially when you serve, of course. For a while, I coached a fantastic lady, Yelena Dementieva. She was number 2 in the world, gold medal in the Olympics. Known, if you remember, you're young, I don't know if you remember, she was not serving that well. She was known for not serving good. Okay. But she was the best in the world on the +1. So she was playing like this slow slice, difficult. It was always trouble for her to serve well. And then they tried to put pressure, but she was always ready in timing to play the +1. So it was very hard to put pressure, even if she was low serve. Yeah. So always consider serve +1. So always spend energy, time and energy at any level. Make sure you have the best numbers to have the serve +1, return +1. So you go into the rally. And then we talk when you're in the rally. But by the statistics, so many points, and you don't even go to the rally. So right. That's another aspect that I suggest.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Intentionally training the front end of the point will change a player's win-loss record. Like, it will help so much, especially if we're talking like a high school player or an adult player in league. But then also it extends. If you get players in college who are being undisciplined around how they're handling the start of the point, and you can turn that around for them, they're going to win more matches. And I think that's a huge area where strategy and tactics come into play of like, well, how are you choosing to start this point? Like, you got to start well, not just from a viewpoint of hitting the ball well, but like, where are you hitting it? And are you hitting it to the right spots?
Yeah, and also there is a conversation about, again, we know in tennis some points counts more than others, because I can beat you, but you won more points than me. So it means some points counts more than others. And I think when it's the end, tennis match is like many little matches. At the end of every game, end of every set, like game point, break point, set point, match point are the one who makes a difference. And then it's easy to say, okay, you should serve and volley on the break point. But do you have the guts to do that? So again, it goes to the mental part. I would say that when I have tiebreakers, there's another aspect. Tiebreakers, you try to stay on your familiar territory. For example, myself, I was a forehand player. I was moving very well. I have good serve. I try to control the ball with my forehand, and every important points I was trying to stick with that, and the opponent knows that. Of course, if I played Boris Becker, Pete Sampras, they come into my backhand, and it was very hard for me. But on my level, I was very good on play. Somebody I beat many top 10. I beat Sergi Bruguera. I beat Alberto Mancini, Kent Carlson, Aaron Crickson, because I was able to play important points well, especially when the environment. I was able to use the environment well. Even if you're in a club, all your friends are looking. Try to use this energy in your favor. Djokovic is phenomenal at this, and try to get the momentum, the energy. The energy is another word. Is incredibly important, and to be under control. And then you can have more chances at any level if you can manage the energy and sticking with your identity in the important points. For important points, I mean the end of something. Break point, game point is very important. Even 40-15 is game point, so important. Never give anything for granted, and tiebreakers. So that's another advice I can give.
Yeah, that is sound advice. That's really good advice for players of all levels. But Well, I appreciate all this. Is there any other thoughts you want to share with us before we jump off today? This has all been awesome stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yes. No, I can say be proud of being tennis players, being proud of being tennis player. If you're a tennis player, most likely, and doesn't matter the level, good tennis player means that you have tennis is part of your life. You compete in tennis at your level, at your age, for your possibility, but you are a tennis player. Probably you are very strong in life too, because tennis is a mirror of life. If you can solve problem in tennis, you can solve problem in life, and you can be good example for your kids, for your relatives, for your lovers, for your friends. And I heard a lot other sports without mentioning pickleball, for example. I like it because it's easy. That's what I don't like, because it's just it's not challenging for me. I respect, of course, but this is not challenging, and it's not going to make you grow as a person. Tennis makes you grow as a person. So be proud and try to be tennis player. We are studying in my company, JTCC, Junior Tennis Champion Center. I'm very proud of the director of Florida of this JTCC, that headquarters in Maryland, probably the best school or the biggest school in US. We start the adults program. They never get a racket in their life. So totally beginners, but in short time, we're able to teach them to be competitive, play matches with the curriculum and with the system and tools that we invented. So we're so proud that in short time we create new tennis players that can play any level competition. So be proud of being tennis players. That's my last message I want to give before finish.
Love it. Love it. Big fan of that. I feel like one of the things I always think about is like, playing the game is worthwhile if the game builds the player. Like if the game makes you a better player, then the time you spend on the court is so valuable. And it will make, I feel like that's happened to me. It's made me a much better person off the court as I've learned to solve problems on the court, just like you said. I love the way you put that. Well,
Thank
cool.
you.
Claudio, thank you so much for jumping on today.
You.
And we just a quick pitch. Tell us about your book that's coming out this fall, just before we jump off.
Yes, title is Once Upon a Time, My Tennis, is 23 stories. I believe in the storytelling power. And regarding me, they're not related with them. So one as a junior, some as a player, some as a coach, some as a manager of ATP. I've been 8 years in the player council of ATP. I'm currently in the committee of coach alumni. So it's a travel around the world and around 40 years of tennis. So this is in Italian, as really second bestseller ever in tennis after Agassi's book Open, and I'm very proud that now I was able to translate, and shortly before the end of the summer should be come out in English. Once Upon a Time, My Tennis. That was my book.
Awesome.
Thank you for letting me present. I really care that I trust that you're gonna have fun and learn things from this book.